Lock your door tonight. Not because something is coming for you. Lock it because for the first time in your life, you are going to sit down in a quiet room and finally understand why nothing has been able to take you out. You have been hunted. Let me say that plainly, because nobody says it plainly anymore. You have been hunted, and you are still standing. And you have spent years believing that meant you were weak because you were tired. You were never weak. You were under fire. There is a difference between a man who is losing and a man who is being shot at while walking forward. And the enemy has spent your entire adult life trying to convince you that you were the first one. Tonight I am going to show you 9 signs. 9 signs that you are not just protected, but that hell has already been given the report on you. And the report came back with one word written across it. Untouchable. I know how that sounds. Untouchable. It sounds arrogant. It sounds like something a man says right before he falls flat on his face. So let me tell you what I do not mean. I do not mean nothing bad will ever happen to you. I do not mean you will not cry. I do not mean the phone will not ring at 2 in the morning with news that guts you. Job was untouchable, and he lost everything he had in a single afternoon. Untouchable does not mean unharmed. Untouchable means unclaimed. It means the enemy can hit you, but he cannot hold you. He can take from you, but he cannot take you. He has permission to bruise, but no permission to own. And there are people watching this right now who have been bruised so many times they assume they were owned. Tonight, I am going to break that assumption in half. My name is George. I have spent years walking beside people in their darkest seasons, sitting on the edge of hospital beds, standing in kitchens at midnight with people who could not stop shaking, listening to men who had not told another human being the truth in a decade. And what I have learned in all that time is that the people who feel the most attacked are almost never the weakest people in the room. They are the ones with something the enemy wants and cannot get. So let's go through the 9. The first sign: the attacks against you have never made sense. Think about your life for a second. Really think. The trouble that came at you, was it proportional? Did it match your size? Because I want you to notice something. Most people go through hard things that fit their life. They lose a job, they go through a divorce, they get sick. Painful things, human things. But the shape of the pain matches the shape of the life. That is not your story. Your story has always had this strange excess to it. Too much came at you for who you were. You were a kid, and there was already war around you. You were not important. You had no money. You had no platform. You had nothing anyone should have wanted, and yet something was already trying to bend you. People turned on you for no reason they could ever explain. Situations collapsed the moment you touched them. You watched other people do the exact same thing you did, and get a completely different result. And you thought that meant you were cursed. Listen to me. Cursed people do not attract that kind of attention. Cursed people are ignored. What you experienced was not a curse. It was a preemptive strike. When Pharaoh gave the order to kill the Hebrew boys, he did not have a name. He did not have an address. He did not know which house Moses was in. He was swinging blind at an entire generation because he knew something was in there. That is what happened to your childhood. That is what happened to your 20s. Something was swinging blind, trying to hit a thing it could sense but could not see, and it missed. You are here, watching this, still breathing. It missed. The second sign: you have been through things that should have destroyed you, and they did not. I want you to do something uncomfortable with me. I want you to actually list them, not out loud, just in your head. The things that should have ended you. The night you sat in the car and did not turn the engine off. The relationship that broke something in your chest that you were sure would never heal. The addiction that had its hand around your throat. The betrayal by the one person who was supposed to be safe. The season of poverty. The diagnosis. The loss. You have never once spoken about out loud because you do not have language for it. Any one of those has finished people. You know that. You have watched it finish people you loved, so why not you? That is not a rhetorical question. I want you to sit in the discomfort of it. Why did that not finish you? You are not stronger than the people it finished. You are not smarter. You did not have more resources. In many cases, you had less. There was a hand on you. I think about the 3 Hebrew boys in the furnace. Everyone remembers that they came out unburned. But nobody talks about what the guards saw. The guards who threw them in the fire killed them. It killed the men standing at the door. Same fire, same heat, same furnace. And it consumed the men outside and could not touch the men inside. The difference was not the fire. The difference was the 4th man in the fire. You have been in the furnace. And you keep coming out with your clothes, not even smelling like smoke. And you keep looking around confused, wondering why you are still here. You are still here because you were never in there alone. The 3rd sign. Darkness reacts to your presence before you say a word. You know exactly what I am talking about. You walk into a room and the temperature changes. Not physically, spiritually. Somebody who was fine 2 minutes ago becomes agitated. Somebody who does not know you decides they do not like you. Conversations stop. There is a tension that has no cause. You have spent years apologizing for this, making yourself smaller, trying to be more likable, more agreeable, less whatever it is you are. Stop. Jesus walked into a synagogue, a normal Sabbath, ordinary people, a routine service, and a man who had been sitting there quietly for who knows how long suddenly started screaming. Before Jesus said anything to him, before Jesus even looked at him. The thing inside that man could not stay quiet in the presence of what was standing in the room. Understand what that means. That demon had been sitting in church, comfortable, undisturbed, week after week, hearing the reading of the law, hearing the prayers, and it never once flinched, until he walked in. If there is something in you that makes darkness uncomfortable, when you have not even opened your mouth, that is not a personality flaw. That is not you being difficult. That is authority you have not learned to recognize yet. The 4th sign. You can sense things you were never told. You knew about the affair before anyone said a word. You knew that man was not safe the first time you shook his hand, and you could not explain it to anyone, and so you talked yourself out of it. And 6 months later, you were proven right. And everyone said, "How could we have known?" And you sat there thinking, I knew. I knew in the first 30 seconds. You knew the job was going to collapse. You knew the friendship was already over while she was still smiling at you. You have walked into houses and known that something happened in that house. And every single time, you have argued with yourself. Because you have been trained your whole life to trust everything except the one instrument God actually gave you. Elisha's servant panicked when he saw the armies surrounding the city. And Elisha did not panic because Elisha was already seeing the other army, the horses of fire, the chariots on the mountain. They were there the whole time. The servant just did not have eyes for them yet. You have that sight. You have had it since you were small, and you have been calling it anxiety. The 5th sign. The people sent to destroy you keep ending up destroyed. I want to be careful here, because this is not about vengeance, and you should never celebrate someone's downfall. But I would be lying to you if I did not name what you have already noticed. The ones who came against you hardest, where are they? The boss who made your life unbearable. The person who lied about you. The one who tried to take what was yours. Watch what happened. You did not do anything. You did not retaliate. You did not scheme. You went home and you cried and you prayed, and you kept showing up. And then things started to unravel for them. Haman built a gallows for Mordecai, 75 feet high. He built it in his own yard, and he went to bed satisfied. And you know how the story ends. He hung on the very structure he built. Nobody had to fight Haman. Haman fought himself and lost. And there is another story I keep coming back to, because it is the strangest picture of protection in the whole book. A king named Balak wanted Israel gone, and he could not defeat them militarily. So he did something far more dangerous. He hired a curse. He paid a man named Balaam to go up on a hill, look down at that nation sleeping in their tents, and speak destruction over them. Now understand, Israel had no idea this was happening. They were asleep. They were eating dinner and putting their children to bed and arguing about ordinary things, completely unaware that on a ridge above them, a man was being paid a fortune to end them with his mouth. And Balaam opened his mouth to curse, and a blessing came out. He tried again from a different hill. A blessing came out. He tried a third time, from a third angle, and by then he had stopped even resisting. And what came out of him was the most beautiful thing anyone said about that nation in a generation. Balak was furious. He had paid for a curse and received a benediction. Here is what I need you to hear. There have been rooms you were never in, where your name was spoken with venom. There have been conversations about you, decisions made about you, prayers prayed against you, and you never knew. You were asleep in your tent. You were making dinner. You were living your ordinary life. And every curse that went up came back down as something else. You did not defend yourself in those rooms, because you did not know those rooms existed. You did not have to. There is a covering over you that converts what is aimed at you. If you have watched this pattern in your life, if you have seen weapons turn around in the hands of the people who forged them, you are not lucky. You are covered. There is something around you that swallows what is thrown at it. The sixth sign. You have been abandoned, and it always turned out to be a rescue. The people you thought you would build your whole life with are gone. That is the wound you do not talk about. Everyone assumes you are fine because you are strong. You have gotten very good at being the person nobody worries about. But you have a graveyard in you of friendships that died, family that turned cold, doors that shut without explanation. You called it loss. Heaven called it extraction. I have watched this over and over. A woman finally gets free of the crowd she had been drowning in, and she cries for 6 months about how lonely she is. And in month 7, she wakes up and realizes she has not been afraid in a long time. That she can hear her own thoughts. That she has stopped becoming someone she did not recognize. She could not see, in the middle of it, that the loss was the mercy. Joseph's brothers threw him in a pit. That was abandonment. That was betrayal by blood. And that pit was the first step of a road that ended with him running a nation and feeding the very men who threw him in. The pit was not the punishment. The pit was the transport. Some of the people who left your life were not taken from you. They were taken out of your way. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived. Things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. The 7th sign. You have a warning system, and it goes off before anything happens. There is a specific feeling you get. You have never named it, because there is no name for it. It is not fear exactly. It is a kind of alertness, a stillness that drops on you for no reason. You are driving, and suddenly you feel like you need to pray, and you do not know why, and you feel foolish, and you pray anyway. You are about to say yes to something, and something in your chest just says no. Not a thought, a no. And when you obey it, nothing happens. Which is the whole point. Nothing happens. You never find out what you were spared from. That is why it is so easy to dismiss. Joseph, the other Joseph, Mary's husband, was told in a dream to take his family and run to Egypt. Right now. Tonight. And he got up in the dark and went. He did not wait for daylight. He did not ask for confirmation. He did not take a poll. And because he moved on a warning he could not verify, the child lived. You have had those warnings. And every time you overrode them, every single time you talked yourself out of it, you paid. Every time you obeyed, you walked away clean and never knew what you missed. That system is not paranoia. That system is a guard, the eighth sign. You have already been taken to the edge, and you did not go over. This is the one I take the most seriously. Some of you have been closer to the end than anyone in your life knows. There was a night. There was a specific night, and you know the date, and you have never told a soul what nearly happened in that room. And then, something happened. A phone rang. A song came on. A memory of your grandmother's voice showed up out of nowhere. Your dog put his head on your knee. Something so small it would sound stupid if you said it out loud. And it was enough. It was just enough to keep you in the room for another 10 minutes, and 10 minutes was all it took for the wave to pass. That was not a coincidence. Elijah wanted to die. This is a prophet who had just called down fire from heaven, and days later he is sitting under a tree in the desert, asking God to take his life. And God does not rebuke him. God does not lecture him. God sends an angel with bread and water and says, "Sleep, and then eat, because the journey is too much for you." You were fed at the edge. Somebody put bread in front of you when you did not have the strength to ask. And I want you to notice what God did not do in that story. He did not send a sermon. He did not send a rebuke. He did not send a list of everything Elijah was doing wrong. He sent food, and he sent sleep. And only after the man had eaten twice and slept twice did God finally speak to him. And even then, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, in a whisper, because the man was too fragile for volume. Some of you have been treated with that kind of tenderness, and you never recognized it. You thought God was silent in your worst season. He was not silent. He was being gentle. He knew that one loud word from him would have shattered you in the state you were in. So he came in small and quiet and easy to miss through a stranger who said the right thing at a checkout counter, through a text from someone who had not spoken to you in 3 years, through the smell of your mother's kitchen that showed up in your memory out of nowhere. There was a night when Jesus told Peter, plainly, that Satan had asked to sift him like wheat, asked. There was a request made. Peter's name was spoken in that request. And Jesus did not say, "I stopped it." He said, "I have prayed for you, that your faith would not fail." Peter still got sifted. He still denied him 3 times. He still went outside and wept like a man whose life was over. And he still came back, because the sifting was permitted, and the failing was not. Your name has been spoken in a request like that. You were sifted. You have been shaken so hard you did not know which way was up. But your faith did not fail. And the only reason it did not is that somebody was praying for you at a level you cannot even access. You are still here because the enemy asked for you and was denied. The 9th sign. You cannot walk away from God, even when you have tried. This is the final one. And if you have all 8 of the others but not this one, you have not understood any of them. You have tried to quit. Do not be ashamed of that. You tried to quit. You went through a season where you were done with church, with prayer, with all of it. You stopped opening the book. You told yourself it was superstition. You built a life that had no room in it for any of this, and you were relieved, and you told yourself you were finally free, and it would not let you go. Something kept pulling. You would be driving, and a lyric would take you apart. You would hear a word, and your chest would break open. You would be doing perfectly fine, living your perfectly reasonable life, and out of nowhere, you would feel the ache of something you had walked away from. Jonah got on a boat, going the exact opposite direction. He paid the fare himself. He was serious. He went down into the hold and fell asleep because he had made peace with running, and the sea would not let him rest. That is what has been happening to you. You have been running, and the sea keeps rising. Not because God is cruel, because God does not release what belongs to him. Some of you have interpreted your inability to walk away as a failure of nerve. You thought you were just too weak to fully commit to unbelief. That was never it. You could not walk away because you were never let go of. 9 signs. Now let me tell you what to do with them, because knowing you are untouchable and living untouchable are 2 different things. And most of you have been doing the first without the second. The enemy has no legal claim on you. That is what all 9 signs point to. He does not have ownership. He has never had ownership, but he has had something else. And that is the thing I want you to see before you close this video. He has had your agreement. He could not take you, so he settled for convincing you. He could not own you, so he taught you to live like a man who has already lost. He whispered your history back to you every morning and let you draw your own conclusions. He did not have to defeat you. He only had to get you to defeat yourself and call it realism. Think about that. Every fear you have carried about the future, where did it actually come from? Not from God. Every voice that told you that this season is as good as it gets. Every time you shrank back from something you knew you were supposed to walk into. Every apology you made for the way you see. Every gift you buried because someone made you feel strange for having it. That was not defeat. That was negotiation. And you were negotiating from a position of total strength, and you did not know it. That ends tonight. Locking your door tonight is not about keeping something out. It is about shutting out the noise long enough to finally hear the verdict that was handed down over your life a long time ago. You were not spared by accident 9 separate times. There is a house you were born into, and a childhood that tried to break you, and a decade you barely survived, and a night you have never spoken about. And every one of those was a place where the record should have ended. And the record does not end. It keeps going. You are still writing in it right now, with your eyes open, watching this. That is not resilience. Resilience runs out. That is coverage. So here is what I want from you. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to go back to one of the 9. Just one. The one that made your stomach drop while you were listening. You know exactly which one it was. And I want you to sit with it and say out loud, in your own voice, in your own room, that was you. Not luck, not timing, not my own strength. That was you. Because there is something that happens when a person stops explaining away their own deliverance. Something shifts. The enemy has always relied on you crediting the wrong source. Take that from him. And then, I want you to do one more thing. Down in the comments, tell me the number. Which of the 9 was the one that hit you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? Just the number. And then tell me the one detail you have never told anybody. The phone call, the song, the dog, the night, the date, the specific small thing that kept you in the room. You do not have to write a paragraph, 1 line, but make it the true one, because I read them. And because somebody else scrolling past at 3 in the morning is going to see your 1 line and realize that they are not the only person on earth who was pulled back from the edge by something absurdly small. That is how this works. That is how we find each other. You were hunted and never taken. Hell filed a report on you, and the report came back, stamped and returned, and the word across it was not broken. It was not available. It was not ours. It was denied. And remember, everything I spoke about goes deeper inside the secret protocol, pinned in the first comment. The 7 keys, the audiobook, and the awakening map are there waiting for you whenever you're ready to take the next step.